So I don't know about you, but I am 100% done with summer. I'm ready for fall. I prefer my fall wardrobe. I want sweaters and boots and things back. Like, I'm tired of shorts, guys. I'm tired of the heat. I'm tired of sweating. Sweating sucks. Hello everyone, it is Sam and I hope you guys are having a lovely day today. I am here today for a recommendations video. Today I'm going to be recommending some classic books for younger readers. So I often feel like when people think of classic literature, they often think of, you know, Dickens and Austen and Thomas Hardy and Alexandre Dumas, some of the books that are a little bit more long or perhaps harder to read and get through for some readers, but there are actually quite a few classic books that are perfect for younger readers. I read quite a few growing up myself that my mom had me read, and I ended up thoroughly enjoying. So I thought I would recommend to you guys some classic books for younger readers, whether you have a child, whether you're younger yourself, or whether you want to pick them up yourself if you're looking for a easier classic to read than, you know, Bleak House by Charles Dickens, then this will definitely be the video for you. So without further ado, I'm going to dive into the books that I recommend. Number one on the list, that should come as no shock to anybody, is of course the Anne of Green Gables series by Ella Montgomery. This was one of my childhood favorites. I love this entire series. It's a perfect book series for young readers. I would definitely say about the age of 10 on is like a perfect starting point for starting this series. I would say about the age of 9 or 10 is a perfect time to read the series. That was about when I read it, and it fit very well with my age. Anne just has a certain whimsy to her, and the way that she views life is just really, really wonderful. It's like the perfect coming of age story, especially for young girls, and it's one that I really, really enjoyed and recommend to anybody. Next one I have is another Ella Montgomery book, and that is the Emily series. This one, of course, is the first book, which is Emily of New Moon. Emily follows the story of another orphan, except for this time she's sent to live with relatives, and it kind of shows her growing up and kind of getting used to the fact that her father has passed on, because her father passed on when she was a little bit older, and getting used to living with these relatives and kind of the joy that she brings to them. This one is not quite as lighthearted as Anne of Green Gables series, but one that I also really enjoyed. I feel like this is a slightly more developed story almost, but I still enjoyed it. I mean, there's definitely some similarities between the Anne of Green Gables series, but if you love the Anne of Green Gables series yourself, or your child did, or what have you, then I definitely recommend picking up this one as well. Because if you enjoyed Anne of Green Gables, then you will most definitely enjoy this one too. The next one that I have for you guys is The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. I read this one when I was about 11 or 12, and I loved it so much. It is such a lovely story. Again, because apparently this was a thing to do when writing in the late 1800s to the early 1900s. It's about an orphan, this young girl who was growing up in Africa with her parents, and her parents died, and she is sent to live with her uncle back in England. And her uncle is very cold. He lost his wife a long time ago. His son is very ill and confined to his room for the most part, and so the house is kind of bleak and barren and cold and not very warm or loving, or doesn't really feel like a home. But she kind of brings a light to it, and kind of brings a light to both her uncle and her cousin's lives as she discovers the secret garden, and with her cousin sets out to make it a place of beauty once again. I really, really enjoyed the story when I read it. Both movie adaptations, the original classic one as well as the newer one, are both very good. Fun fact, the man who played Merlin's father in Merlin plays the uncle in the new version. I just thought that was funny. I love Merlin, I can't help it. Anyway, this is another one that's really, really accessible read for younger readers, and one that I enjoyed myself as a child. Plus this edition is gorgeous and I love it, and it's one of my favorite book editions ever. The next book I have to recommend is Heidi by Johanna Spyri. I feel like I might be saying that wrong. Again, this is an orphan story because apparently that's what we like to write about in the 1800s and 1900s. But this book is still a lovely story. I also enjoyed it as a child, and I think many young readers would as well. It follows a young orphan who is initially raised by her aunt, but is eventually sent to live with her grandfather in the Alps. Her grandfather is a rather bitter man who is at odds with the villagers and basically anybody that encounters him, but soon Heidi starts to kind of warm him up and kind of bring him around, and it kind of follows her adventures with her grandfather in the Alps. Again, this is a story that I really enjoyed, and another classic that is perfect for young readers. Next one I have is one of my all-time favorite books. It's quite popular. Many people have probably already read it, but I have to mention it here because it is a lovely story, and that is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. When I read the story, I loved it so much. There are many moments in this book that will make you cry, and you have read it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, but it's a lovely story nonetheless. It's a coming-of-age story that follows 4 sisters, Amy, Beth, Meg, and Jo, set during about the time of the Civil War and after, and I loved it so much. So much. And I highly recommend it to anybody who has not read it yet, and I highly recommend it for any young reader. It's definitely a story that you will feel invested in. It has quite a bit of family drama, but it's also heartwarming as well as touching and kind of realistic, and I loved it so much. And fun fact, apparently the BBC is developing a new movie version of Little Women, which it's been a while. I think the last one was like 94 was the last movie adaptation with Winona Ryder, and I am quite excited to see how the new one will be. Although my favorite is actually the 2 classic versions, because this movie has been done a lot, kind of like a lot of the Jane Austen ones. The next one is another book by Frances Hodgson Burnett, and that is A Little Princess. This was one that I loved when I was a kid. It's about a girl who is sent to live in a boarding house during World War I. Her father has to send her away because he has to go fight in the war. Soon she receives some sad news, and she basically has lost all of her money and is forced to work as a servant in a school. And it kind of follows her story. She kind of tries to keep her spirits up and make the best of her situation. I love this book and I love the movie. I highly recommend it to anybody who has not read it yet. And of course, it's another one that's perfect for young readers, another classic that is very easy to read and accessible. Next book I have to recommend is Watership Down by Richard Adams. I read this book when I was about 12 years old, and I loved it so much. I could not get enough of this book. I actually really want to reread it because I haven't read it in years. But this book is so good, guys. It's so good. It's set in England. And the story follows a group of rabbits, and these rabbits have their own culture and language and mythology, and it's super rich, it's super detailed. I remember loving it immensely. It's perfect for young readers because it kind of has that good mixture of fantasy and whimsy, and I love it, and I just recommend it to everybody. I'm sorry guys, I do. But this is one that if you haven't picked up already, I recommend. If you have a child that you're having a hard time getting to read, I definitely recommend because it has a lot of adventure in it, and you just will get engrossed in the story, and I love it, guys. What can I say? The next one I have to recommend is actually a sequel to Little Woman, and it is Little Men by Louisa May Alcott. I personally like this one just as much, and in some ways, if not more, than Little Woman. I read this one also as a kid because I love Little Woman so much I wanted to read the sequels. There's another one after this, which is called Jo's Boys, which I didn't actually like as much, but Little Men is pretty good. It follows Jo when she's older with her kids, and she's running a boarding, kind of like a school for boys. And it's really good, guys. It's great getting to see the characters as they're older, they're more developed, they have more adult problems. This one also follows some of the perspectives of the boy characters, and I also enjoyed it just as much as Little Woman. So if you enjoyed Little Woman, I definitely recommend picking up Little Men. And the last one that I want to mention is another one that I don't see mentioned at all that often here on BookTube, and it's a classic fantasy, and that is the Chronicles of Prydain by Lloyd Alexander. I read this one when I was about 12 years old, I think, and I loved it so much. You guys might be familiar with it because one of the books in this is The Black Cauldron, which Disney did do an animated version of, and it's terrible. They completely butchered the book, so I hate it, but that's for another video. This book series consists of 5 books, which is the Book of 3, The Black Cauldron, the Castle of Lear, Terran Wanderer, and The High King. Now, these are perfect for younger readers. I did actually try to reread these recently, and they're definitely very much written for a younger audience. The first book is okay. Terran is a little bit annoying if you're an adult, but they definitely get better as they go along, and I think many young readers would really, really enjoy this. I actually think this is like a perfect introduction to fantasy, particularly for young readers. Lloyd Alexander is really good at creating a rich, detailed world. It is, of course, based upon Welsh history and mythology, and I love it so much because it's very nostalgic for me, and I think many a young reader would enjoy it as well. Alright guys, that is it for my video on classic book recommendations for young readers. I hope you guys might have found this helpful, not only if you have like a young reader in your own life, or perhaps you just want to pick up one of these yourselves. I hope you guys still enjoyed it and got some ideas from it for yourself. Alright guys, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Until next time, happy reading. Bye!